All right, we're into Beatitude 4 this week. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Or as the Message puts it, you're blessed when you've worked up a good appetite for God. He's food and drink in the best meal you'll ever eat. We're going to focus on the celebratory aspects of this verse, on being filled by God, on abundance, and on blessing. And to do that, we're going to talk about choro music from Brazil. So here's the history of choro music as a genre in Brazil. A man named Cazes wrote a book about this, and in it he talks about how the polka arrived in Rio de Janeiro in the 1840s, and musicians there started interpreting it in their own way. And the word choro comes from the root word chorar, which is like weeping or literally to cry. And I know that sounds like it's in conflict with what I said about this being celebratory music, but it's describing the way that the Brazilian musicians would interpret the polkas. And so what you can listen for in the music that overall is joyous and celebratory is the way that the clarinetists and other instrumentalists interpret that melody with kind of a sense of wailing. But the music overall, both in its context and style, is not really sad music. It's exciting, celebratory music. And choro is important historically because it became the basis for samba, which you may have heard of or experienced before, as well as bossa nova. It's kind of the grandfather of those two styles of music. And there's a little bit of an analog here between the synthesis of Afro-Brazilian culture with European polka and other melodies, a little bit of an analog here with like Dixieland jazz in the United States, which is also a synthesis of music from West Africa with European influences. So choro is, you could say, it's a little to Brazil what Dixieland jazz is to America. So for listening to this style of music, we're going to listen to a clarinetist and her group. Her name is Anat Cohen. She's famous in her own right as a jazz musician, but she also has this choro group called Choro Aventuroso, which means adventuresome choro music. And so it's their own take on this classic kind of music from Brazil. So you're going to hear a unique combination of instruments that's specific to this genre. You've got accordion, which can play melody as well as harmony. You've got Anat Cohen on the clarinet, which is one of the main melody instruments in this genre. Then you're going to also hear the pandeiro, which is like the Brazilian tambourine. And if you haven't heard of this kind of music before, you're probably going to be impressed by all the different sounds that these musicians can get out of the pandeiro. And then this group also has a guitar player, but it's a special guitar. It's a 7-string guitar. And that gives the guitar player an extra low note because the guitar player in this genre also kind of has to be the bass player to some extent. So that extra low note gives them the ability to have a bass role. And what's missing from this is another instrument that's typically in choro, which is the cavaquinho. And this is a smaller 4-string Portuguese guitar. But this particular group doesn't have it. I want to walk you through the formal elements of this, the musical elements, so that you can listen really actively to this. First of all, timbre. How does the accordion sound? How would you describe the sound of an accordion? How would you describe Anat Cohen's unique tone on the clarinet? Is it bright? Is it edgy? Is it warm? You can listen closely for that. Listen for all the different tone colors that the pandeiro player gets out of that tambourine. And then listen for the guitar. You know, there are so many different kinds of guitars. Electric guitars, steel string acoustic, nylon string acoustic. What is the timbre? How would you describe the timbre of this particular guitar? And then harmony. Where's the harmony coming from in this music? Well, predominantly the guitar player, who's able to play more than one note at once, but the accordion player is also contributing to the harmony. Listen for how the harmony plays a role here, how quickly it changes, and whether the chords are simple or complex. And even just noticing when they change, for some of you, will be a big deal. So listen closely for that element. Rhythm. Oh man, this music is rhythmically very exciting. And I'll tell you why I think it's exciting. Overall, the piece will feel fast, but underneath it, there's this two feel. We'd call it a duple meter, like bop, boom, bop, boom, bop, boom, that you're gonna hear. Strong and weak, right? So it's a duple meter, two feel. But because it has those layers of like longer durations and then shorter durations and then even shorter, faster notes and rhythms from the clarinet player, it has all these rhythmic layers, and I think that makes it really exciting. See if you can catch on to that. And then the melody. Okay, this is an instrumental genre. So the melody doesn't have to be sung by anyone, and as a result, it's really not that singable. In other words, you might walk away from this kind of humming along a little bit, but it's actually really virtuosic. And that term means that it's technically challenging or demanding for the musicians to play. And since they can play high to low and low to high and a lot of fast notes more easily than someone could sing those notes, the melody ends up being very virtuosic. Listen for how it's in the clarinet, but it's also doubled in the accordion, and sometimes the guitar player gets to play it. Also listen for this cool thing. We're hearing the composed melody, and then at a certain point, the clarinet player will play without the accordion player also playing the melody, and that's your clue that now she's playing an improvised melody. And they all get a short turn playing improvised melodies in this. The form is set up such that there will be a statement of the melody, and then you'll hear it restart again, but it'll end a little differently. And so I might call those refrains. You hear the refrain and then you hear it again. Then we're on to a new section, and then you hear that again. And that kind of pairing happens throughout the piece. That's the overarching structure of the music. And then texture. Most of it is this foreground, background type stuff, which we call homophonic texture. So the accordion and the clarinet get to be in the foreground. They're playing the main melody, and then the pandero and the guitar and also the accordion provide the background, the rhythm and the harmonic background for that melody. So those are the elements of music that you can be listening for. I invite you to pause this video now and follow the link to hear Choro Aventuroso, and they're going to be playing the piece Teclas Pretas. Enjoy, and come right back. Welcome back. Joyous, upbeat, celebratory. I'm arguing for this music as representing that feeling of being filled as a part of this Beatitude. Now, I gotta at least mention a little something about Samba. That's right, Samba. You probably hear Samba and you think that famous film Rio or Rio 2, right? Actually, I haven't seen those, so I can't say if they're any good. But I have heard that the music is actually pretty authentic. So if you have seen those films, you've heard some good Samba, I guess. No, but Samba is a style of music that developed and emerged in Brazil after Choro, very popular. You might associate it with the Carnival season in Brazil. Maybe you've heard of that. These are big parades, parties that precede the Lenten season, that lead up actually to Fat Tuesday and the Lenten season, which is in the Christian tradition, the 40 days of preparation that lead up to the celebration of Jesus' resurrection at Easter. So the Carnival is the party beforehand. But Samba actually, though it's an important part of that celebration and is really a part of Brazilian national identity because it's such a widespread popular music, that music actually takes place all year. And the cool thing I want you to know about Samba is that it's like a community activity. You don't have to be a professional musician to be in a Samba. They call them Samba schools. And it's like a community activity where you'd be in a community and you'd be in the Samba school and you would rehearse and you'd perform and you'd have your own local parades, not just the big carnival thing in the big cities, but this is a community event. So something to appreciate about that is it's community music making. And if you're really not good enough to play in the band, you just get to be a dancer and you get to be involved that way too. So Samba schools, that's also an important part of Brazilian music that came after Choro. So I've got a playlist for you on our site. I'm not going to highlight any specific piece for you, but explore that a little bit. Listen to some Samba, and you'll hear some of the same elements of Choro, like lots of syncopation, rhythmic vitality, lots of drumming, and then sometimes unison vocal lines the same way we heard the clarinet and the accordion playing the same melody together. So that's Samba, and you can have a little taste of that as well. So let's come back to this idea of hungering and thirsting for righteousness. What does that have to do with this? Again, I'm emphasizing the being filled part. For me, there's a dialogue here with Ecclesiastes. Eat, drink, and be merry. There are things in life worth celebrating. So let's celebrate them. God made things good to be good, and those things are worth celebrating. So music can help us do that, and does help people do that all over the world. Queries. So here are some questions for a deeper reflection. Do we celebrate God filling us and fulfilling us? What would it look like if we were to do that? What does what we celebrate say about what we value? What do you celebrate? Because that might be a window into the things that you value in your life. And then finally, is there anything that isn't celebrated that you think should be in your life or in our society? What needs to be celebrated? What's an example of abundance and blessing that needs some kind of recognition? There's some things to think about with the Beatitude, and I hope you enjoy the music.